audio-described film of an interview with actor Pushpinder Chani, Run Rebel, 13 minutes 4. Pushpinder Chani is a middle-aged man of South Asian heritage with a full head of wavy grey hair and greying stubble. He's wearing a black jumper and a thin silver necklace. He's filmed in front of a white wall with white Victorian mantelpiece. Text. Who are the characters you are playing in the production?
The main character I'm playing is Harbans. He's Amber's dad. And he's there really to make... He makes Amber's life difficult. You know, he's a big obstacle for the family. But that's his function really. But he has his own issues which he's dealing with, and an addiction which, you know, is really kind of taken over him. So it pollutes his the way he interacts with the family, the way he sees life. It has a real adverse effect. So he's the dad. I play Jazz as well, who's Ruby's husband, and I mean, it says in the script, you know, he's a quiet man, a gentleman and a kind man, and that's what he is, you know. He's there really trying to make things work between himself and Ruby, you know, because he's finding that, you know, the relationship isn't where it should be. But he's also there to remind us that, you know, there are nice people in the world, you know, and things don't necessarily go according to plan for them either. But yeah, he's there to, you know, and he's part of this family, you know, and he's witnessing a lot of this, but he's kind of on the outskirts and he's not really able to really have much weight in, you know, or any say. But a lot of that stems from not being able to communicate properly with Ruby, or she has a lack of interest in Jazz. And the final character I play is Mr. Jones, who's the inspiring teacher that plants that seed in Amber's mind about, you know, taking action, you know, maybe exploring this idea of a revolution and really, you know, to make a change for the better. So yeah, and he's there as a catalyst that gets things yeah, moving in the right direction for Amber and the family of Amber's mom and sister.
Text. How do you use your performance skills to distinguish between them?
You think about the physicality for each character. You think about, yeah, there is a voice quality. You know, for example, Harbans is quite harsh and hard, and, you know, he dictates a lot, you know, demands a lot, instructs a lot, and that then is presented, you know, in that harsh kind of edgy language and abruptness he has. Jazz, you know, he's a friendly guy, you know, and so, you know, he has a softer tone. You know, he's more open to, you know, just sharing other people's happiness. So again, you know, so that reflects, you know, that just keeping that in mind, you kind of, you know, you just have that lightness about you, but he's quite grounded as well. So, you know, there's him being rooted, just there's that aspect, you know. Harbans is a bit, you know, just all over the place, you know. He really owns the space, you know, like I say, because of that control. And Mr. Jones, you know, he's a bouncy character. He's an inspiring character. He wants to, you know, educate children in an entertaining way. So, you know, keeping that in mind, it kind of informs how you move with that lightness he has. But, you know, the other thing that I find helps to help, you know, remind myself as an actor, you know, about these individual characters is I mean, you know, without getting too deep, but there's something called the Chekhov technique, and it's called psychological gesture, and it's just a gesture you can express physically that sums up that character's, you know, feelings and emotions, but it's creating that gesture physically, and it can be in any kind of form, but something that sums you up, sums up the character, keeping that in mind and letting that physicality affect your emotions, but then you use that as an anchor once you kind of recall that anchor each time, and you do that for each character. And the gesture can be big or small, but anything that kind of sums up, like for example, with Harbans, it's like, I kind of felt like he's contorted and he's got the weight of the world on him, but he's angry, and so it's just like him crouched, fisted, and then it's what do those emotions bring, how does that make me feel? So I remember that when I come out of that gesture and I'm in scenes or just before I'm about to go on stage, just recall that, and I do that for each Jazz and Mr. Jones. Jazz is like, he's an open person, so he's got like that's his, he embraces people, and he's open. Mr. Jones, it's kind of quite, he's quite theatrical, he's a performer, so, and it could be as simple as something like this, just doing this, but what does that make me feel as Mr. Jones? And I keep all those things in mind, and then I'll go on stage to help make that distinction between each character, and the lines obviously get that across as well. Actors don't usually tend to speak about their process or techniques a lot, and you don't necessarily have to use it in every rehearsal process, but I find it really useful because some actors might want to use animals, and kind of what animal a character might remind them of, and then they kind of spend time with that, observing that animal, being that animal, and then just taking out those obvious characteristics of those animals, but letting that affect. So it was one that was personal to me. Michael Chekhov, he's a great practitioner in having techniques for acting. So that was one that resonated with me.
Text. What are some of the practical challenges of a multi-role play?
Yeah, I mean, there's this. It's remembering where once you've come out of one character and you've then become somebody else, but then you're going back to the other one that you've just you were in 2 scenes ago. It's trying to remember where where you left that character. So it's just trying to recall that. There's the practical side of things. Remember what costume you're wearing and making sure you've got the right costume on. Yeah, They're the challenges, and you're literally thinking, please take a little bit longer saying those lines. It gives me that extra 5 seconds to make sure I've kind of got my hair up, got the zip up, and then and if some of the costume changes go a little bit awry, it's panic mode. But then you just compose yourself just before you step on stage. But those are the challenges. Yeah, remembering where you are, where you were in the previous scene, and then remember where you need to take the character. And the other thing is, and the costume changes. But the other thing is. Because the scenes are so quick and so short with each character, it's making sure, the pressure of making sure you hit the emotional levels and continue help telling the story. So jumping into those moments to get those emotional, get that emotional clarity across is challenging. But yeah, you just do it. But that's the other challenge I found with having multiple characters. You can't just keep track of one character and remember their journey. It is just dropping it and then picking up, but then doing it very quickly and making sure you do it in the few lines or the 1 or 2 pages you have on stage.
Text. Why does Amber's dad behave the way he does?
Yeah, I mean, Harbans, he's a scarred character. He's had a difficult upbringing. He's an orphan. He was made an orphan. It's not specific in the story of in our play for the theatre, but he does make reference to it at the end that he was in an orphanage. So that experience has scarred him, and then he lost his parents. He was encouraged to come to England with all these promises. Those promises weren't met, but he's uneducated, he can't read or he can't write, he's trying to support a family, he got married young, and so he's trying to keep things together, but he's not delivering as a husband, as a dad, and he knows this, and he has massive insecurities about his lack of education and having to rely on his daughters. But all the early problems, his answer was alcohol. he felt that numbs, you know, whatever it is he's feeling, and it does for him. But the effects, you know, they're just devastating for him, for his family, his loved ones, and it just gets worse and worse, you know, as life continues for him. So he's that way because he's addicted, and now he's addicted to alcohol, you know, there's nothing, he needs help. And as I say, you know, it's that addiction that pollutes his interaction with his family, and he's completely oblivious to people that actually love and care for him. And he hurt so many people in the process. And then at the end, you know, he kind of... The thing is, he does feel guilt, but only in moments of when he's sober. But then the addiction beckons him, and then he's back in that mindset. But yeah, at the end, you know, I guess I like to think, you know, he with the realization of, you know, how he feels being isolated, that he might take a step forward, you know, to kind of put things right. But the addiction's massive for him, and that's what causes everything to go wrong.
Text. Does he feel attached to his chair?
Well, it's the only chair we have on stage, so he's not got much option. But it does feel like his... he stashes his alcohol down there, he broods there, you know, he thinks there, he sleeps there, you know. Yeah, I mean, you know, it is him, isn't it? I guess it's one place he kind of feels comfortable, you know, because he has moments where he thinks about, I guess, comforting thoughts of his mom. So, yeah, you know, I'm sure it has some sort of comforting effect, but then it's a chair that kind of, you know, he does a lot of thinking on, but kind of takes him down a downward spiral when he gets too deep in thinking, which he's constantly doing.
Text. Can you tell us what you do to prepare for each performance?
Yes, so individually, I mean, we all do actually, collectively, you know, we watch, we do vocal warm-up, we do exercises, you know, physical activities, physical warm-ups, making sure, you know, we're all kind of, you know, just feeling ready for the show. Because, you know, if the body's not warmed up, one little mishap, you know, and then you're going to be paying for it down the line, and then you can't do a certain lift or anything properly. So we do make sure we're physically warmed up, vocally warmed up, and we practice all the physical moves and lifts and things on stage that happen in this show, always as a prep. Practice the races, because there's a lot of timing of movements which, you know, all are to counts and beats. So we do that every night. Individually, you know, I dipped into things that I felt informed my character, you know, about alcoholism, about, you know, addiction, you know. So yeah, so the things that I did during the rehearsal, but otherwise that's always a given: vocal warm-ups and physical warm-ups.
White theatre logos on a purple background. Lottery and Arts Council England funded.